Many thanks to Surfshark for supporting today's video. Stay tuned to learn more about Surfshark, their outstanding privacy services, and the incredible deal they're offering to Arvin Ash viewers. In 1859, an apocalypse of biblical proportions occurred in the Western Hemisphere. This was not the kind of apocalypse you might imagine. Nothing physical was destroyed, but the destruction of conventional intellectual, social, and religious thinking was equally apocalyptic. So what happened in 1859? A book called On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection was published by a little lone person by the name of Charles Darwin. And the world has never been quite the same. We don't realize today how this impacted society at the time, but suffice it to say that 160 years later, we are still affected by it. Charles Darwin changed the way people look at living things. Most Western society at the time had believed the biblical account of creation before this intellectual earthquake. Today, evolution is one of the most tested, well-established theories backed by solid evidence in all of science. Yet, it remains one of the most misunderstood. Here's some common statements that you will hear. Evolution makes organisms change to better suit their environment. Evolution occurs by random chance and mutations. Humans are the most evolved species. Evolution is just a theory, so it's speculation. If humans came from monkeys, there wouldn't be any more monkeys. Thermodynamics disproves evolution. Why are all these statements incorrect? How does evolution actually work? And why do so many people get it wrong? This is one of the most important topics in all of science, in my opinion, and that's coming up right now. First, let's define evolution. Evolution is inherited change in a population of organisms over time, resulting in appearance of new forms under the influence of pressure from the environment. The first thing to note is that changes are in populations, not individual organisms. So for example, if an elephant finds itself living in a very cold climate for a very long time, it will not become hairy like the extinct woolly mammoth in its lifetime. But over successive generations, the environmental pressure will likely cause hairier versions of the same breed of elephant to have a survival and reproductive advantage. So subsequent generations will likely get hairier because those hairier elephants in the population are likely to have more opportunity to reproduce. Their offspring will have inherited the hairy trait. The change would occur in the population over time, not the individual, and not suddenly. Another point to note is that this change does not occur by random chance. Mutations are caused by mistakes that happen when a cell makes a copy of its genetic information during the cell division process. Mutations are random, but they are driven by a non-random process called natural selection. Natural selection is the opposite of random chance. It's driven by a survival and reproductive advantage. And these changes in populations are not typically caused by sudden beneficial random mutations either. And mutations do provide a critical source of variation in the gene pool of large populations. But the vast majority of these genetic mistakes, called mutations, are either neutral or harmful. It is estimated that only about 0.01% are beneficial, meaning 99.99% of all mutations are neutral or harmful. But even this small amount of just 0.01% is enough to be a significant driver of evolution because it generates the genetic variation on which natural selection can act. Any variation that makes an organism more fit for survival is more likely to spread in the gene pool through this process. But this idea of fitness does not mean that the strongest survive. A better fit organism does not mean that bigger, faster, more ruthless, smarter, or stronger individuals are favored. Only individuals that have a better chance for survival and reproduction are favored. Strength, size, ruthlessness, or intellect does not equal more fit. Ultimately, evolution is not goal-oriented or a linear process towards some kind of progress. It is simply about fitting best in one's environment and having the opportunity to reproduce. Some organisms may not change over long periods of time. Take the example of the American alligator. The fossil record indicates that it has stayed largely the same for 8 million years. If there are no major changes in the environmental conditions, and if a species is already well suited for life in those conditions, why would it change? Also, the idea that humans are the most evolved species because we are cleverer or faster or have more nuclear bombs than any other species is plain wrong. If you think you're superior to a tuna, try living underwater for 40 years. Humans are not the most successful species on the planet. Our planet is dominated by single-celled organisms. There are 10 to the 30 single-celled organisms weighing 10 to the 14 kilograms. The weight of all humans is 10 to the 11 kilograms. If you go by weight, then even insects are more successful than us, weighing 300 times more than all humans combined. What about the idea that evolution is only a theory, that it's about faith and not evidence? First, in science, a theory is not simply a hypothesis, meaning a speculative and unprovable idea. In science, theories are well-supported explanations. A theory means that it is a model capable of being tested by experiment or observation and able to predict future observations of the same kind. It's based on a careful and rational examination of the facts. Calling something a theory is a good thing, not a bad thing in science. So if someone says that evolution is only a theory, ask them if they know what a scientific theory actually is. It's still called a theory because it's still subject to examination and confirmation. We have the theory of relativity and the theory of gravity too, which are also very robust theories. One distinction should be made here when people say that evolution cannot explain how life started. That is absolutely correct, but that's not the purpose of the theory of evolution. Evolution only works on populations of living organisms. How life first started is called abiogenesis, and it is not well understood yet, like evolution is. I made a video about it if you want to know more about it. Then there's the statement, if we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? First, we did not evolve from monkeys. We didn't even evolve from chimpanzees or gorillas. Rather, evolution shows that we share a common ancestor that lived probably around 10 million years ago. This ancestor was not a chimpanzee or gorilla, but just a common ancestor of all modern apes, including us. Go back further, about 25 million years ago, and this common ancestor of ours shared a common ancestor with modern monkeys that live in Africa and Asia today. So that 25 million year old ancestor is our ancestor too. In fact, if you go back far enough, all living things on Earth have a common ancestor. We're even related to all plants, mushrooms, and bacteria. Now we get to the commonly held idea that the laws of thermodynamics, namely entropy, disprove evolution. The idea here is that evolution cannot be correct because it defies a fundamental law of physics, that entropy or disorder increases over time, whereas complex life appears to be a drive towards more and more order. Astronomer Chandra Vikram Singh famously told a court in 1981, the chances that life just occurred are about as unlikely as a typhoon blowing through a junkyard and constructing a Boeing 747. This proves that even highly intelligent, science-educated people can totally misunderstand and mischaracterize evolution. A slightly better analogy would be something like this. Start with 1 million junkyards, put a tornado through each, exhaustively test the wreckage left after each tornado to find the most flight-worthy object. Make 1 million exact copies of that flight-worthy object and junkyard combination. Put another 1 million tornadoes through it. Run exhaustive tests to determine the most flight-worthy object. Make 1 million more copies of the junkyard and flight-worthy object. And keep doing this over and over millions of times until you produce some kind of machine that can fly. Could be very simple and crude. Then make millions of copies of that and further refine for flight worthiness. And keep doing this over and over for millions of years. You will end up with something that might be even more flight worthy than a Boeing 747 if the evolutionary driver is flight worthiness. If you pick even the simplest bacteria alive today and calculate the odds of getting their genome by randomly shuffling DNA sequences, the odds are astronomically small. But random shuffling is not the way evolution works. The idea of entropy applies to closed systems. Put crudely, a closed system where matter and energy are conserved gets more disorderly over time. The Earth is not a closed system. The sun is spraying it with huge amounts of energy every day. This energy is driving the thermodynamics of the Earth. Overall, entropy is increasing of the closed system that contains the Earth and the sun, but this does not mean that pockets of lowering entropy cannot exist. Your refrigerator is a prime example. The food inside is getting cooler and its entropy is decreasing. But if you feel the vents outside that refrigerator, you'll find that it's heating up your house. The entropy of your whole house, if it was a closed system, would be increasing. To understand evolution, you need to appreciate three things. First, that quadrillion to 1 chances actually happen all the time. Second, that while mutation is random, which mutations survive is not random. It is a systematic process that results in adaptations over time, influenced by environmental factors. And thirdly, given enough time, the accumulation of one beneficial mutation after another can produce amazingly complex systems. Although the present-day observational results of evolution can appear to be impossible, it's a process that, given enough time and influenced by selection and other environmental pressures, can make the impossible extremely likely. For the past 160 years, scientists have tested this theory every imaginable way, from field studies to fossil studies to computer modeling, with every imaginable organism. Each new test has only added to the already overwhelming body of evidence to support this theory. There's not a single piece of credible evidence to disprove it. There's not really much in science that is as well proven. Famous French Jesuit priest and philosopher Pierre Desjardins said, "Evolution is much more than a theory. It is a general condition to which all theories, all hypotheses, all systems must bow, and which they must satisfy henceforward, if they are to be thinkable and true." Speaking of evolution, human technology has evolved such that online privacy has become non-existent unless you take sufficient precautions. This is where Surfshark is a savior. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden to make sure nobody sees what you do online. So for example, the internet knows a lot about you. Think about the information that's on your computer right now. When you send your passwords, name, social security number, birthday, etc., you need to make sure that this information is encrypted. You can do that through Surfshark's secure VPN tunnel. Now here's another neat thing that you can do. If you live outside the USA, say the UK, and you have Netflix, you don't have access to the full suite of movies and shows available in the USA. Likewise, in the USA, you don't have access to shows available abroad. You can even get better prices on airline tickets in many cases because the same tickets are often cheaper in other countries. With Surfshark, you can access any country to stream from, no matter where you are. Click on the link in the description right now because Surfshark has an incredible deal for Arvin Ash viewers. If you sign up using this link and use the promo code Arvin Ash, you're going to get 83% off and up to 3 months for free. That's hard to beat. Again, many thanks to Surfshark. And if you like this video, please share it with your friends and leave a question or comment. I try to answer every question. I'll see you in the next video, my friend.